Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's podcast on industry groups that are resources for emergency planners. My name is Barbara Webster. I'm the Executive Vice President of the Americas for Go Crisis. In our most recent podcast, you may remember, if you heard it, Mark Dumbroff discussed a specific nonprofit organization called the Aviation Emergency Response Organization, otherwise known as AERO. And today I'm pleased to have two guests with me to further discuss this organization, as well as another group that is based out of the UK, the UK Aviation Emergency Planning Group, or UKAEPG. Penni Chambers is the chair of AERO. Nick Orwin is the chair of the UKAEPG. Welcome to our podcast. Before we get started talking about the organizations, please tell me a little about yourselves and your day jobs and how you became involved in all of this. Penni.
I'd love to start. Thank you so much, Barbara, for having me. I'm Vice President of Risk Management for Hillwood Development Group. We have a commercial aviation arm called Hillwood Airways. So I do all things insurance as it relates to all of our enterprises, including the commercial aviation enterprise that we have here. And so that is how I actually became very involved in AERO. I took some time out to learn the aviation emergency response groups and found AERO through Mark Dumbroff and his team at Fox Rothschild, and just fell in love with the aviation industry's emergency response planning.
Thanks so much, Penni. Nick, welcome.
Thanks, Bob. I've been in aviation for about 25 years. I work at London Luton Airport, which is one of the largest airports in the UK. And I'm the emergency planning manager there. So I look after crisis management, emergency planning, contingency planning, and as well as lots of other stuff in operational safety. But yeah, I when I got involved in that area of work, I joined the UK AEPG, which was kind of an ongoing concern already, and found a kind of a home amongst like-minded people who wanted the standard to be high, and eventually kind of got involved in the running of the organisation, and then I'm now chair.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you both for joining us. I'll start off with Penni. Let's talk a little about AERO, what the mission is, what's it all about?
Yeah, so what is AERO? AERO stands for Aviation Emergency Response Organization, and we are a nonprofit that's been in place since about August of 2016. We're comprised of members who have a vested interest in all things emergency response. So our mission is to be a resource, a network to connect with or to build or improve everyone's plans around emergency response.
That's great. Can you also talk about how Nick is connected to AERO?
Yeah. Yes. So Nick is actually connected he is a reciprocal board member, as well as AERO also has a reciprocal board position on his organization. And we did that because we, again, are a resource, and we wanted to just have an international connection with his group so that everybody is so wonderfully open around their planning and their response and all the information necessary. And so we came up with a way to have reciprocal board members so that we would have the additional resource available to us through Nick's organization.
Thank you. So Nick, tell us a little about your organization. It may have some differences to AERO, but how are you tied together with all of this, and what's the mission of your organization?
Our mission is to improve the standard of emergency response in the UK to aviation incidents. But obviously, there's no one border when you're talking about aviation. The whole idea is that you're flying off just to other places or welcoming people from other places. So what the group is trying to do is find benchmarks where there perhaps aren't them, and certainly legislation is different in the UK to what's set out in the US. Find ways that we can easily drive up those standards, capture the learning, because again, not very many aviation accidents, thankfully, inside the UK. So we want to try and rake the ground for every bit of intel that we can. Use that, spread it amongst our members, agree what the best path forward is, and create new standards for ourselves. It's a little different to aero, but not very different. I think we have a very smaller board, a steering group, if you like, for the whole of the group. We meet quarterly. The steering group meets more often and talks, every week, pretty much on WhatsApp or in person, and shoots the breeze and tries to figure out what our next plan is. So yeah, we're a little different, but not really very different. And I'm was really pleased when I was asked to join the Aero board by you, Barb. Thank you very much for recommending me. But that was it was really heartening to see this group of people who I never met before. So I'd met some of them, but I didn't really know them. But they have the same aims, same goals, the same heart for trying to make this the best possible response to a horrible event, really.
So all of your stakeholders, are they airline related? Because I mean, you work for an airport. Do you have other stakeholders involved?
We yeah, it's quite broad actually. Airports, airlines. The group actually started just at an airline amalgamation, but way before I actually joined, it broadened out to airports. But we also have our regulators on there, the Air Accident Investigation Branch and the CAA. We have emergency response organisations like God Crisis, sit on the group. We have train companies and cruise companies who have a very similar set of challenges in response to a mass transportation incident, and who've got things to share with us, and we've got things to kind of point them towards. So a very broad group of people, but we're a fairly small island still, so there's a lot of integration and a lot of crossover, and the times when we've had to kind of pull together, that's really helped us.
Thank you. Penny, how about with Aero? Can you talk a little about the stakeholders that are engaged with your group?
Sure. We have if you have a need for emergency response, we are open to you. But the majority of our stakeholders are truly aviation. That's how we were founded. So we have air carriers, airports, air fire rescue, insurers, communication specialists, aviation attorneys, family assistance people, anybody that has anything to do with an emergency response is welcome. But those are our main stakeholders.
Thank you. What type of steps are you taking to help ER planners become better prepared?
That's a great question, Barbara. We actually hold an annual meeting every year for our members, and that's usually in February at the Fox Rothschild Aviation Symposium. But we also have different types of webinars and resources that we present to our stakeholders in the community. So just recently, we finished up the first 24 hours of an aviation incident, and that was a webinar that we had with several panelists. And then the next one that we're having in May is kind of our 201, if you will. The first 24 hours was the 101. Our 201 is now the first week. So these are going to be things that you would expect to see in the first week of an incident. And we've got a great set of panelists from, NTSB, a former NTSB investigator. We have, again, carriers, communication specialists, all of those type of stakeholders that you would see in that first 24 hours are giving their expert advice and best practices in those webinars. Recently, at our annual board meeting that we held in February, we were just blown away, if you will, by our keynote speaker, who was Valerie Collins. She did an amazing job. She was one of the, thankfully, many survivors of the Miracle on the Hudson. And so she came to our board meeting and just told us her story and the things that really meant more to her in that emergency response, and things that really stood out to her, things that that the airline could have done better, that, the Port Authority could have done better. All of these things really come together to make us better in that incident response platform.
That's great. Nick, how about you? Is it similar to the work that you're doing there? Do you do any type of educational symposiums or webinars?
Yeah, so a few of those things, we often invite speakers to our meetings. So in the past, we've had, for example, the representatives from Brussels Airport who suffered a bombing a few years ago. We have had people who have had response experiences. So to the Ethiopian air crash a few years ago. We also have kind of almost an open help system for our members. So it's an ongoing chat that anybody can ask for help on any topic. Everyone's a member. Everyone shouts up with responses, points them in the direction of, is this a law? Is this best practice? What do you do in this circumstance? And so one of the kind of the big offers that we have is almost like a mentorship. Somebody who's new into emergency response planning, who perhaps hasn't got a massive grounding in it, because these things are often learned on the job, get a chance to kind of be with experts, be with practitioners, bend their ear, get their thoughts. And we're also working on some pieces of kind of work. A lot of, for example, my job is not a regulated position. Our Civil Aviation Authority expects airports to have someone like me, but the competencies for that job are not really defined. And so a big piece of work right now for us is defining, what they ought to be as in this role, what skills you need, what training you need, where your focus should be, and almost how to start. If you had an empty page and you were told you're the ERP manager for an airline, or you're the ERP manager for this transportation hub, how do you get going? It's a really big challenge for a lot of people. We want to help.
That's great. That's so important, that transfer of knowledge and the knowledge sharing, because as you say, there are so many people that are new to those roles now, and not only within the aviation sector, but the regulatory environment as well. So if you mix the newbies with the newbies, it can become really confusing sometimes. And so, Penny, I know that with Aero, if you could talk a little about some of the member checklists that everybody's been working on.
Oh, definitely. So, again, Arrow is really there to help build and improve plans, right? So, everybody in the industry has come together, our board specifically, to come up with these checklists for people to use and our members to use for their emergency response planning. I mean, checklists are such a big deal. And sometimes you just don't think of things, especially when you're in this role for a long time. You just kind of forget that those are the things that you need in an emergency response. So it's been really great to have various members from various industries, again, carrier representation, things like that, who have maybe gone through some of these incident responses and can say, oh, you know what, we didn't have that on our checklist, and that was something that we really needed. So we've been working on checklists for a really long time, and have been putting those on our website as we work through them. Our board takes a very defined look at putting out information and resources, and our checklists have been one of the bigger hits, if you will, of our website.
That's great. Now, I also know that aside from the UKAEPG, that we also have another reciprocal member. And can you talk a little about Matt Maurer? Matt is with or was with Aircraft Rescue Firefighters, the ARF group. So can you talk about the importance of having that group involved?
Yeah, so that's the Air Fire Rescue, ARF, ARFF, is does have a reciprocal board position in Aero, and then we on theirs. This is really important because many times um, airports and municipalities, especially smaller municipalities, don't always get involved or don't always have the opportunity to get involved with incident response planning. And so we felt like this was a very important piece of our mission to include as many pieces of this puzzle as possible. And so they've been a really great resource on for helping us to understand what the airports need, what they as air fire rescue needs as well. So they've been a very important part of our board makeup.
Thanks, Penny. So what advice would you give, Nick, to the stakeholders on the importance of working together and your thoughts on preparedness? How can you make your plans better? And how do they reach out if they need help mentoring someone?
Yeah, this is something I could probably talk about all night. There's a lot of disciplines when you're talking about emergency planning, and it is hard to be a master of them all. I really believe in picking a battle, trying to win it, and then moving on to the next one. So it can be overwhelming. Start with something that you can find a solution for, and then move on to the next thing, and find people who are ready to help you. Certainly, in the UK, I would point out the UK APG of that as that, and I would certainly be telling anybody overseas, get in touch with Aero, find an Aero member, find a connection to Aero, because there is an awful lot of good that can come from there. Organisations like Go Crisis have a lot of expertise inside them, and are in a really good position to advise, airlines, airports, any kind of person trying to put something together which is going to mitigate against a horrible event. Give them good advice on how to do that. But yeah, don't be overwhelmed. It is achievable. Is my method. But also, it's never perfect. Every goal you achieve, every corner you turn, you see a new horizon of problems and a new set of challenges. This is a world of consistent improvement, strive towards excellence, and what you understand as excellence is kind of always moving away from you as your knowledge gets bigger and bigger. So yeah, get involved. Don't be too scared. Pick a battle. I think that's how I would sum it up.
Wonderful advice, Nick. Penny, how about you? What would be some of your advice to new members, new stakeholders, people that are new to the industry?
I would just add to what Nick said. Go to your resources. Know that this is not a perfect game. No incident will ever be the same. You will always learn something new throughout your planning. But utilize as many resources as you can, because you will find that those that have been through various emergency responses and incidents have a lot of knowledge to give. And I just say utilize as many resources as you can, learn to connect with people, and just be available, right, to lend guidance and when it's needed, and allow people to help you enhance your planning and response capability.
Great advice. Great advice. So, how can people get involved in your organizations? Can you talk a little about? Do you have, your websites? Are you on social media at all? Where can they get more information about the UKAEPG? Nick, we'll start with you first, and then I'll come back to Penny.
Yeah, the best place, Bob, is at our website, ukaepg.co.uk, where there's some information about the group and its members, its aims, and there's some contact options in there which will put you in touch with the leadership of the group. I would, we also do a bit of outreach stuff ourselves. So if you are in the UK and you're in aviation and you've not heard from us, it's not because we haven't been trying to speak to you, because we really kind of thrive on a good network of people. But yeah, go to our website, I'll get the email. I'd love to talk to anybody in the field and associated ones. Like I said, we have rail, we have cruise companies, we speak to coach operators. There's a lot of synergy here, so we want to make sure anyone who's traveling probably on a coach or a train to an airport as well as driving. It's a complete journey. Let's look after them.
And are there costs involved to being a member of your organization? Are you a nonprofit as well?
We are a non-profit. We have a small yearly membership per organisation. For that, you attend the meetings, you get access to webinars that we run. And we also use some of that money funneled back into training. If we collectively buy training or buy experts or pay for speakers to come and speak to us, then it's much easier to share that cost around than pay for it per organisation, when sometimes there's only one or two practitioners. So you want a trainer, that's going to cost you a lot of money. If we have 70 members, well, suddenly it's a lot more of an economic prospect for everybody. So yeah, we use that money, £75 a year at the moment. Not very much for what they get.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Penny, how about with Arrow?
Yeah, so we are very similar to Nick's organization in that most of what we put out is on our website. It's Aviation Emergency Response.org. I know that's very long, but we have various we have two types of memberships. We have an individual membership for $60, and then we also have a corporation membership that allows for 3 individuals, and that is $150. Any more than that, we'll certainly work with you to be able to work that monetarily, if you've got more. But as Nick said, there are just not as many people in emergency response. So we've kind of tamed that number down a little bit. But join Arrow, and you'll have access to our member directory. You have access to all of our webinars, our checklists, which are really popular right now. And one thing, Barb, I do want to say is that we do have a global presence, right? So some of our members on our board are currently, international air carriers, and of course, Go Crisis is international as well. And so, we've got members from all over the world: Canada, Thailand, obviously London. So we're very, very diverse in our membership.
Well, we're really proud to be members and to support the causes that you're fighting for, and that's to educate people and to let them know that they're not on their own out there. There's this huge community waiting to assist. It is there's no secrets, there's no animosity. That's left to the marketing crowds. When it comes to emergency planning, there is no competition. So to have organizations like Arrow and the UK AEPG that are out there, and the membership fees are so low, it's just outstanding, the work that everybody puts into this. And I know that people do not get paid for these organizations. And so it's purely out of the goodness of everyone's heart. And I would highly recommend both of your organizations to anybody within our industry or externally, because you can always take away lessons learned for your areas of the business sector, whether it's, as Nick said, rail. If you have questions about aviation insurers or legal questions about aviation, there are people there that will assist you, and you don't get a big bill at the end of it. They'll offer some just assistance. So I would really highly recommend that. So before we go, I want you to bring up your, just to let us know your website addresses again, Penny.
Sure, that's Aviation Emergency Response.org.
And Nick?
UKAEPG.co.uk.
Thank you so much. And as all of you know, if you want to contact either of these individuals about their organizations and for some reason can't remember that, you can always contact us at info@gocrisis.com and we will certainly pass along your questions. So thank you for your time today, Nick, out of London. It's late your time, so thank you for joining us. Penny in Texas, always great to see you. You do have a picture that we need to discuss before we go. Behind her head, she has a camel. I love this. So tell me about the camel.
Okay, well, this camel was a gift to Ross Perot Sr. And was on our at our ranch for many years. His name is Teddy, and he passed away a couple of pre-COVID, passed away pre-COVID, but this picture is the only picture in our entire office of Teddy, and so I felt like I just really needed to have his presence in my office.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today, and I hope you found this to be valuable. Thank you for your time, and safe travels all.
Thank you so much, Barbara, for having us today.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks a lot.